Now that we've gone through the basic components of an LCM and what it comprises of, there are just a few more technical details that we need to cover. The first is the actual LCD, which is the glass panel or the liquid crystal display. This display can be primarily of four types: TN, STN, and FSTN. So TN is typically used in the numeric displays where the segments are not that many and the segments are not very close to each other. So ghosting effect does not take place. The standard type of display which is used these days is STN, which is super twisted pneumatic. This is the standard used in most alphanumeric as well as graphical displays. There is also an FSTN display, which is a film super twisted pneumatic, and basically this display gives a higher and a better contrast. So in some of the displays you will find that there is a white color background with blackish or dark characters, and that is an FSTN display which will give you a better contrast and also slightly higher sunlight readability. The next very important characteristic of an LCM is the viewing angle. Now, it depends, basically, the viewing angle you choose depends on what your application is. So, sometimes you have a desktop model where the user is standing and the unit that is to be used along with the display is at a lower level, the lower than eye level. Sometimes in control panels, you have the display which is mounted at a height. So the eyes are actually at a lower level and the panel is at a higher level. Now, any display has a certain angle which gives the best readability and contrast. So now if you look at the image, you can see that there are primarily four types of viewing angles: 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, which is the most common. And then you also have 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, which are used in certain applications. So if your eye level is lower than where the display is going to be, so in a control panel, if the LCD is going to be at a height and typically the user's eye level is going to be at a lower level, then the best contrast, the best view angle to have is a 6 o'clock. However, if it is the opposite, if the user is going to be standing and the eyes are going to be at a higher level than the display, and the display is, say, at a desktop at a lower level, or if it's a handheld unit, then in this case, a 12 o'clock display is most suitable. So this is also a very important factor that we need to keep in mind when we're selecting a display or going in for customization and defining the characteristics. Finally, last but not least, four more characteristics that we need to keep in mind when either selecting an alphanumeric graphical or a customized display. So the first is the type of glass: reflective, transmissive, or transflective. Now, if the display is going to be used in an area where the ambient light is sufficient and we don't need a backlight, at that time a reflective glass panel is used. If we are sure that we don't have any issues with power consumption and we are going to be using a backlight, in that case, the best kind of panel to use is a transmissive. However, there are certain cases where in certain times we may need the backlight, but we also want the display to be readable without the backlight. So in that case, the compromise is a transflective display. Next is the module size and view area. So the module size, as the name suggests, is the size of the complete module. The viewing area is actually only the size of the glass panel, which is considered the visible area or on which you have data that is visible. Operating temperature. Standard operating temperature of most displays that we manufacture are minus 20 to 70. However, for certain low-cost commercial applications, you also have the option of 0 to 50. And if your application warrants a higher temperature grade, which is minus 30 to 85, which actually does go into military grade, that is also possible. Last but not least is the operating voltage. So most of the displays standard is 5 volts, but we also have displays which can work on 3.3. Now it's important to remember that the actual display or the glass panel as well as the ICs, they will work on 3.3 volts. But if you are using a yellow green backlight, that requires 5 volts because it's an array type. However, if you're using an edge type white backlight, then that will work on 3.3 volts. It will be a little dimmer, but in cases where you're using a battery and power consumption is an issue, 3.3 volts will work fine. I think we've gone through pretty much the entire basics of LCMs. If you have any further doubts or any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. You can email us at sales@orioleindia.com or call one of us and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you so much and have a nice day.